Hello everybody, Chapomon here. I know it's been a couple of years since the last time I talked about Digimon Tri, but with the sequel movie now being released, I thought it'd be a good time to catch up on the rest of Digimon Tri. To be honest, one of the reasons why I kind of stopped doing these Digimon reviews was that I was relatively put off by the fourth installment of the Digimon Tri series. Something about this just kind of started to rub me the wrong way, and I could just see so much faults in the series. Not that I didn't think the series had a lot of faults to begin with, but they really became more apparent at the start of the fourth movie, and after watching the rest of the Digimon Tri series, I'm sad to say that this is a really disappointing series overall. Which is so sad because it started off so strong with the first episode. So let's just run down through each of these movies individually. So Digimon Lost. The compliment I can give this movie, as far as I can remember because I honestly don't want to rewatch it again, is the backstory with Dago and Maki. It was interesting to see Maki's past history as a Digidestined, and ultimately what led her to work with Yggdrasil, even if it would be overall against her self-interest as a human, since Yggdrasil wants to destroy the world. It was also a nice touch to past lore established in the penultimate episode of the original series, where it was briefly mentioned there were past Digidestined that actually previously saved the digital world. Even if I didn't like the way it was presented, it's just kind of shoved into the beginning of the movie. It's sort of like a silent movie. I just kind of wish they would have presented that in a bit more natural flow with what's going on. Maybe the characters are thinking back, or maybe Dago's explaining things to the kids. And I don't even think that that information gets conveyed to the Digidestined, so this information is just really more for the audience. So yeah, I guess there goes the one compliment that I gave the movie. So we pick up where we left off with the Digidestined finding their Digimon who now can't remember anything because they've been rebooted. And here is a major thing that just kind of got to me. Up until this point, the movies have been doing a pretty good job at referencing elements from the series as a whole. Whether it be very small things like that throwaway line I mentioned, to kind of pre-established concepts when it comes to Digimon. But here is what I don't understand. Why don't the Digimon know who these kids are when they were created specifically for them? In the original series, they already knew that they were waiting for them their entire lives because they had that instilled in them. But here they're just like, who are these guys? Well, they seem alright, let's hang out with them. Then of course we move on to, I guess, the primary focus of this episode being Sora. And I don't know, it just feels like all the characters kind of regress back to season 1. Sora seems very upset that the fact that Biyomon does not recognize her at all. And for some reason, Biyomon's just an awful creature. I don't understand it because season 1, it was sort of the total opposite. Sora was a pretty cold person and Biyomon was always way more loving. So I don't understand where this role reversal sort of suddenly came in, and Sora's sort of obsession to try to get Biyomon to recognize her and want, I guess, to love her. It feels like a regression of what they learned in season 1, and sure, I guess you can't just mature from when you were like in 5th grade and still carry that on when I guess you're 18 or 20 or however old they're supposed to be in the series now. But it just feels so forced and so contrived just to have some sort of conflict. The only thing I can see with the whole thing with Sora is to contrast her with Mikey. Sort of that you can't force someone to love you and accept you. They kind of have to do that on their own. And her whole motivation this whole time is to get her Digimon back after it was sacrificed and cannot be reborn. The only way to do it is to reboot the digital world. And oh, you already knew this was going to happen. Your Digimon's not going to remember you. So then she becomes all of a sudden very pushy and kind of crazy. And then, of course, then we learn that Genai is the bad guy for some reason. I can only think that this is probably a reference to that dark spore that got put into him in season 1, which maybe we're all meant to assume that just made him old, but I guess not. Now, all of a sudden, he's evil and really disturbingly rapey around the girls. Yeah, I don't understand why. I mean, the battle animations, I guess, at the end is pretty cool. Let's just throw all the stock footage and all the evolutionary form changing sequences, because that's what everyone loves. And yeah, sure, I like it, but it got a little bit excessive there. And it ends with Genai killing Meiku, seemingly. Oh yeah, who just somehow managed to go to the digital world somehow, despite her not having any kind of crest or any kind of way to open a portal. And there is another thing that kind of like bothered me. I've read reviews previously that mentioned that a lot of the movies had sort of a cheap animation quality to them. And honestly, I didn't really see it at first, but this movie really kind of reinforced that in me, that wow, it seems like your animation budget is starting to run out, because there's just some scenes where it just seems like they're trying to cut corners, having close-ups and just very, very limited motion paired with a lot of dialogue. And then, of course, the aforementioned excessive use of transformation sequences, which is always reused stock footage. I don't know, it just feels like, wow, this is getting cheap, but it was just that ending. It's just, okay, Genai's evil suddenly, and then Mako is just like, oh, no, she's the key to poor Meikunmon, and let's kill her. Oh no, but come on, we already know that she's not dead. And then it's just sort of getting kind of frustrating, because I already know at this point how this is going to end. It's just so painfully obvious how the series is going to end, because it's starting to feel more and more and more like a bad fan fiction. But I will talk about that more after I discuss all the episodes. The fifth movie being Coexistence. So the fifth movie, I guess, is where the politics of Digimon come out, I guess. It's a bit more clear where the two factions are. You got Homostasis, who just wants stability, and Yggdrasil, the two, I guess, gods of Digimon, or host computers, at least that's what the wiki says. I guess they both have a difference in opinion about what's the best way to deal with humans and bring harmony to the Digimon world. It's just so... I honestly got so lost in this convoluted mess of who wants what and why. I got so lost. And all I can think of is like, wow, just all these breaks and just the stability of the Digimon world just kind of really makes the sacrifice that Black War Greymon and Okawa made for the Digimon world, and sacrifice their life essence to kind of reinforce that barrier between the real world and restore balance to the Digimon world. More fighting ensues, and then, oh no, Tai dies, along with Doggo, which no one seems to care that Doggo dies, which makes Kari light, I guess, turn to darkness, and makes her Digimon digivolve to Ophenemimon Fallen mode, which then fuses with a deranged evolved Meikunmon, and they make this monstrosity, which wants to destroy the world. Which is so stupid, because even if you don't watch the sixth movie, you know that Tai is alive, especially if you've seen the second season, because there's an epilogue, so why even go down this path? Why? And of course, gotta have a protagonist change, gotta pick up those goggles, because that's just the thing that runs with Digimon. Although I will give this episode credit, it did hit me in the feels when Doggo remembered Bearmon. Just that little flash. It's just like when you remember a dead pet briefly. Still miss you, Choopy. And speaking of despair, I guess Maki ends up drowning in the dark ocean. I honestly had to go back and kind of see if this was her last appearance, because I thought this was something that was just left unanswered, but I guess we're supposed to assume that she drowns here in her despair. Fitting? You know what? No, it's not a fitting end. By killing off Maki, you rob her of the chance of learning from her mistake and redeeming herself in some way. Not dissimilar to Okawa, who ended up sacrificing his last remaining life force to restore the digital world at the cost of him never actually going to the digital world. There is a possibility that Mikey might come back in Last Evolution, but I kinda doubt that. Last movie, Future. So everybody's down about Tai being dead and this freak of a Digimon running around destroying the world, apparently making rain and erasing stuff. And Kari falls into a fever. Oh no. I mean, she does this like every other series. They fight, but alas, it seems kind of pointless. And then of course we see that Tai isn't dead, although Dago is looking not too good. And then we finally get to see the season 2 characters. Maybe this time they'll team up and help out, and oh, they're in stasis, and that's all we get to see of them. And I guess they're taken to the hospital off screen. Why? Dago ends up dying to save Tai and the season 2 kids. I'm kind of sad that he didn't get to see a rebooted Bearmon one last time. We're reminded that Kari is special. Damn it, stop hitting me in the feels, movie. It turns out that Mekumon's deal is that she has one tiny bit of data from Apocalypsemon, which apparently has corrupted her and spread a virus and caused mayhem everywhere. Which, why didn't Apocalypsemon get like filtered out and stuff, you know, when season 1 ended? Then it turns out that Meicoomon has the memories of every single Digimon within her pre-reboot. Everyone gets their memories back and Meicoomon is destroyed. I so did not see that coming, guys. I mean, really, no, that's so horrible. I mean, how could you kill another person's Digimon? I mean, it's not like they did it in the second movie without batting an eye, but for some reason here it's an issue. And I don't quite understand why they'd be sad, because they don't pre-establish that Meikumon's not going to be reborn for some reason. Granted, any Digimon that dies in the real world is apparently not reborn, as established in Season 2, and man, I'm sounding like a nerd right now. And of course the password is Dandan, because I so did not guess that. It's not like you guys made a weird conversation at the very end of the first movie about it. But at least it was pre-established and it wasn't something incredibly predictable like Love or Maiko. Though somehow Genai gets Meikumon's Apocalypsemon data bit and walks off, and that's apparently not resolved at all. The world starts rebuilding off screen, we still don't see the Season 2 characters, and Meiko moves back to her hometown, but still in touch with the original Disney Descent. She's best friends. And then the movie just kind of ends, which I guess isn't really all that much different from most of the other Digimon movies. So after watching all of that, I can't say that I missed anything. I mean, it ended the way exactly how I thought it would. Status quo, because we already know what their future is. The only unknowns would be any new elements that get introduced in this entire series. But then, of course, all of that is just kind of wiped away. I feel like there was a lost opportunity here to kind of further develop that independently of the original Digidestined, but nope. And oh my god, this entire series just feels so much like a fanfic. It just feels like this whole series' peak is in the first movie. There's a lot of nice nostalgia, animation's pretty decent, and it doesn't raise too many questions that kind of messes with lore and continuity and whatnot. I mean, even by the end, I'm not quite sure which faction, I guess, of Digimon host computers is the good guy and bad guy. I mean, it doesn't seem like neither one of them is supposed to be the good or bad guy, but I don't know which one would have the best interests of the humans, I guess. But as this entire series progresses, it becomes so painfully obvious that Maiko is a Mary Sue. It just kind of devolves this entire series into one fanfic, and not a particularly good fanfic. She just happens to be the new girl that just moves into town where all the original Digidestined live, and she just happens to be a Digidestined with a really powerful Digimon, but that seems to have a dark secret in it. They take her in, they become best friends, but then it turns out that her Digimon is corrupting their Digimon, and they get a virus, and then they all get ill, and then her Digimon goes crazy and berserk and super powerful. So in order to kind of deal with this, the entire world has to be rebooted, and that means everyone gets their memories lost. They try to prevent this, but then they fail. So then they have to go to Digital World and try to see what this new rebooted world looks like and if they can get their Digimon back. She refuses, but then she regrets it because she knows in her heart that she needs to be there for Meikunmon and all her new friends, and goes to the Digital World somehow. Then she ends up taking those life lessons that she was taught by hanging out with them and helps one of them out and gets her spirits back up. But then Genai comes in, who's crazy and evil all of a sudden for no apparent reason, and kills her, which causes her Digimon to go crazy. But it's okay, she's actually still alive and fine. But then Tai dies, but it turns out that he isn't dead. And then it turns out that her Digimon has everybody's memories backed up within her, and then they have to kill her. And it's really sad, but everyone knows it has to be done. And then, of course, she ends up moving back home after these events. But she'll still be best friends with the Digidestins, and maybe she kind of has a romance with Tai. Maybe she's not. Maybe. Thus breaking the hearts of the Tai and Matt shippers. I mean, come on. Like, this series already has a Mary Sue and Kari, who seems to be like the uber special child who gets possessed by a god and has a super powerful angel, and then her Digimon was evil, but then it turned out that she became good and became super powerful and was the key to destroying this really super powerful bad guy. Then it feels like some elements of the season 2 movie Digimon Hurricane Landing and Transcendence Evolution, the Golden Digimentals, and the fact that you have a Digidestin who has a Digimon that's evil and you gotta stop it. I mean, it's sort of like just that movie, except with less American references and a really odd theming and tone in general. That movie was a little weird. So I guess now comes a question about, was this worth putting me through again in terms of Digimon heartbreak and how disappointing the series off, all leading up to the last evolution? I mean, in terms of last evolution, it looks like what I thought the series was going to be, and in terms of it's time to sort of put childish things aside and kind of grow up, and only that these childish things are actively killing you for some reason. It honestly, it's going to sound like it's probably a really contrived plot, but I kind of see what they're going there, at least if the trailers are to be believed. And I honestly thought this is what this series is going to be. It's going to be reconciling being partners with monsters and becoming adults. You're not these kids that are just running around this unknown world and becoming heroes. You're these adults now who have these powerful monsters, and your actions can have devastating effects in the real world, and not just the real world, other people's lives. In the meantime, you're also a teenager going into adulthood and having to come up with, what do you want to do with your rest of your life? What direction are you going to take your life in? Those are really challenging questions, and honestly, I was kind of expecting more from Digimon Tri. I was expecting more mature themes to be kind of explored, especially when you have these monsters, and reconciling these newfound responsibilities as an adult. And that's just kind of something that, when it comes to anime or any kind of series that is primarily aimed towards children, but somehow stays like an active franchise, your audience kind of tends to grow up. And I think you could do either one or two things. You can either ignore your fan base as they grow up and try to target a newer, younger audience, such as in the case of Pokemon, whose protagonist never grows up. Or you can do what Digimon's doing, aging up your characters and putting them in these adult situations and putting them through new adventures as adults. But it just feels like they didn't kind of go all the way there. You have a little bit of that with Tai trying to figure out what he wants to do with the rest of his life at the very first episode, but it just kind of feels that most of that kind of falls through the wayside and just for, I guess, more of the same in terms of just anime tropes. And that's not to say some of those tropes can't be fun. I mean, honestly, a lot of it was okay. At least, movies 1, 2, and 3, in my opinion. But I just would have wanted to see a little bit more. They could have explored relatable issues that their aging audience may have experienced or are even going through. And maybe even having this history of having past heroics, along with having some sort of destiny that maybe already petered out. And that despite the end of your adventures in the Digimon world, it's not the end of your life. You still have the rest of your life to make new adventures. And as your friends might go their separate ways, you'll still share that bond of your shared adventure and experience. And hell, no matter what happens, some of them might always be by your side. Honestly, I don't know if Last Evolution is going to give us that. I feel like it's going to maybe briefly touch on those themes that I want to see explored and then just kind of go back through mindless action and really contrived plots and references to plot elements from the past. And I assume they're going to resolve the whole Genai's evil thing and just kind of keep milking that Digimon nostalgia with the first generation. Although I am really glad to see that we'll actually get to see the second season characters. I'm hoping they have a predominant role in this movie, even though it seems to be going back to being Tai and Matt centric. One can hope that they actually try to do something new. I kind of saw recently on Twitter someone mentioned that it feels like the Digimon anime is really focused on hitting people in the nostalgia and just milking it for all it's worth. Versus the Digimon video games where it seems like they're always trying something new and trying to kind of stay relevant. Not really trying to stay relevant, but kind of doing their own thing within this franchise. Honestly, I say they're doing way better job of it than Pokemon, whereas in Pokemon, you're always just some 10-year-old kid who's being thrown out to the wilderness to go play with wild animals. Whereas the Digimon video games tend to have teenagers being thrown into an unknown wilderness, playing around with wild animals, kind of. Except that they actually tend to kind of explore darker themes about what it is to be a person or have issues, as they have been doing in the most recent releases in the Digimon Story and World series. Though I still feel like they can do a bit more. They still have yet to kind of grapple with some issues when it comes to sexuality or actually growing up and maybe having to make hard decisions that might affect the rest of your life. But we all know how franchises work. Toei's probably going to keep milking this series until the nostalgia runs dry. And so does the money well. So it's kind of hard not to give them money when they put out such cute plushies and Digimon stuff. But I still don't see a Ponchomon plushie. Get on it, Toei, and take my money. And if you've made it this far, thank you for watching and listening to me bitch about Digimon. I know I haven't been making as much content as I used to, but I'm trying to rectify that. I might even make a video on Last Evolution, and I'm considering attending a fandom event and watching it on the big screen, even though I know I could probably find it online somewhere. But hey, thanks for watching, and if I missed anything, got anything wrong, or maybe you want to share some insight as to maybe why these movies are probably better than what I'm describing, please leave a comment. I'm actually curious to see what the Digimon fandom actually thinks of this series as a whole.
ヤマト、俺がいるでしょ。何でも話してよ。寂しいこと、辛いこと。ずっとそばにいるよ。ヤマトが嫌だって言っても一緒にいるよ。ヤマトが結婚して子供とかできたら、俺赤ちゃんの面倒見るや。
は？
ヤマトがおじさんになったらさ、一緒にサウナに行く。ヤマトがじいちゃんになったら一緒にお散歩するや。
なんだよそれ。
ヤマトが大人になってもずっと俺を必要としてくれるなら、ずっと俺は何だってできる。世界だって救うよ。
Toy, stop making us gay for Gabumon. Oh, who am I kidding? We were already gay for Gabumon.